Welcome to Gig Harbor. I'm Jennie with Infinity Real Estate, and I have been selling homes here specifically in Gig Harbor for more than 15 years. So what I'm here to do today is to share with you the top 10 highlights of things that come up the most in conversations of what it is that makes this area so great. What I hear time and time again is that Gig Harbor is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And when you think about the vast world and how many incredibly gorgeous scenic places there are, it might seem hard to believe. But let me just tell you, when you come across the Tacoma Narrows Bridge and you see the coastline with the Olympic Mountains in the background, just sprawled out in front of you with the Puget Sound, it really is breathtaking. I get asked all the time to compare and contrast all the towns along the peninsula and other places in Washington and what they have as pluses, what they have as minuses. And when it comes to Gig Harbor, probably the number one thing I talk about with regard to the community is this sense of community and the pride that people have here of being residents and participants in Gig Harbor. It starts with the stronghold of the original Croatian families. If you don't know, Gig Harbor was settled by a Croatian fisherman, and some of the first gas-powered fishing boats were built here in Gig Harbor back in the early 1900s. We now have many generations later of these original Croatian fishing families that are still here, mostly in the historic district of Gig Harbor, and they bring that really strong sense of community. They're what started it. What came along on the backside is just in general, the maritime influence here. People who are attracted to the maritime lifestyle and to boating and to all of the outdoor recreational activities, they want to belong to a community that really supports each other, upholds the natural beauty, and want to make the community a better place. There are so many opportunities to get involved. You can volunteer in many, many ways, whether it be for pets, children, seniors, the environment, you name it, there's an organization that supports it, and all of that just brings our community up all of the time. Along with being a small town that has an extremely strong sense of community, one of the things I think are the most special about Gig Harbor is the fact that everyone is friendly. Some people who are coming to Washington, they hear about places like Seattle that are a little bit frosty, or I've heard people who move from other areas talking about it being very difficult to meet new friends. Gig Harbor is the opposite. A couple of stories I'll share. One is I will often, when I'm initially gonna meet someone, I'll ask them to meet me in a coffee shop. And invariably, if they arrive before I do, by the time I get there, someone local is chatting them up, asking them where they're from, asking them all kinds of questions, and immediately making them feel welcomed into the community. Probably my favorite story, and this is super cheesy, I completely get it, and I wish I could tell you I hadn't told this story a million times, but I have. So, when I was deciding where in Washington I wanted to live and I was exploring towns, I came to Gig Harbor one day. It was a beautiful spring afternoon. It was bright and sunny. And as I was driving along the harbor, I saw multi-generational families taking a walk together, like moms, dads, grandma, grandpa. And I thought, oh, this must be some kind of special event, like take your grandma on a walk day, because where can you go in the country or anywhere and see families taking walks together? So I truly did. I thought, oh, some kind of special day. So I came back to Gig Harbor probably about a week later, and I did the same drive around the harbor, and I noticed the exact same thing. People were walking and talking to each other. They were with friends. They were with family and extended family. And I just couldn't believe it. I went and I asked people, like, is this really true? Because I just can't believe this happens. And they were like, kind of looked at me like, who are you? You're obviously weird and not from here. But yeah, that's how people are in this town. So in addition to the cheesy story I told you about, is it Walk Your Grandma Day in Gig Harbor, ultimately Probably the number one reason I personally chose to live here, in addition to the amazing sense of community, is the fact that I think Gig Harbor is the perfect spoke location. What do I mean by a spoke? Well, you can get almost anywhere in an hour or less, traffic aside. So for example, I can be parked in downtown Seattle in an hour. I can be to Bellevue in less than an hour. I can be to the Cascade Mountains and skiing at Snoqualmie Pass in less than 90 minutes. I can be hiking in the Olympic National in an hour. SeaTac is only 35 minutes on a good day, and I can be halfway to Portland within about an hour. In addition to that, you're 15 minutes to Tacoma. You've got all the major assets of these amazing cities so close by, but yet we live in this rural place, and within an hour you can get anywhere. It's somewhat of a little known fact that Gig Harbor is fully self-contained from the standpoint that we have everything that you need right here in this area, and you don't have to worry about going to Seattle or Tacoma to get the things you might be used to having in a big city. So for example, we have plenty of grocery stores, including high-end. The Metropolitan Market is similar to a Whole Foods. We have terrific restaurants, and we have plenty of shopping. The shopping goes from boutique stores, both for men and women, up to department stores like Target. We have a Home Depot. We have a Costco. Hooray, you definitely need a Costco to be a fully self-contained town. And we also have all the major medical right here, including a full hospital with emergency and surgery services. Let's talk about the lifestyle here in Gig Harbor. Just look behind me. Oh my goodness, who wouldn't want to be here, right? There is so much to do outside, really all seasons. Let's talk about the fact that we have 100 miles of coastline around the Puget Sound. And yeah, I really did say that, 100 miles of coastline. We are here on the protected Puget Sound, which means that the water, even though it's tidal saltwater, it is so calm most of the time that it feels more like you're on a lake, big giant lake that is, than actually being on what is quote unquote ocean. So with that being said, we're a hotbed for canoeing, kayaking, powerboating, sailing, fishing, anything you can think of that you can do on the water. And then we've got amazing hiking. We have, as I mentioned before, I believe, you can be at Staircase in Olympic National in just an hour from here. And we have, right here in town, we have thousands of acres of woods and trails that you can go hiking and walking in at any time. The Cushman Trail here in Gig Harbor is a 13 miles of paved trail that winds all the way from the Narrows Bridge to the north end of town. The bottom line is there's just so much to do with outdoor activities. And then there's all kinds of indoor stuff to do too, but we're just gonna stick with the outdoors for now. When you think about a suburb of a large city, in many cases you think about just sprawling housing developments where all the houses look the same, all the shops and restaurants look the same, and there really isn't a whole lot of diversity in the communities. One of the things that makes Gig Harbor so special is it's the exact opposite. You go one block and you've got a certain type of home, you go through the trees and you cut through another, and you might have a tucked in neighborhood where you might have 20 homes that were built at the same time and have, you know, the semblance of a neighborhood. And then you go another 2 blocks away and it looks completely different. Couple all of that with the incredible diversity that we have of waterfront and view properties that face all 4 directions. It's a picturesque town no matter where you are, and that just brings an added element of beauty that complements the natural landscape. Gig Harbor is known for having great schools. One of the things that make great schools are great teachers. When you have such a fantastic town with the lifestyle that we have, and really, really importantly, the amount of community support, it means that great teachers want to live and work here, and then they bestow that on our children in the education system. There's so much community support. Even though we have a lot of retirees who live in the community, They are all invested in making the community a better place, and therefore supporting and making our schools better is something that is widely known and important throughout the community. In addition to our highly rated public schools, we have a number of terrific private schools as well. So for families looking for the best of the best between schools, lifestyle, community, commute, you name it, it's here in Gig Harbor. So many of the clients that I have helped to relocate to Gig Harbor have come from giant cities, whether it be Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle. So traffic is just life. And it's so fabulous to live here on the Olympic Peninsula in Gig Harbor. You put a destination in your GPS and it tells you you're going to get there at 4:04 p.m. And guess what? You're gonna get there at 4:04 p.m. I have friends who've moved from California tell me that when they first arrived, they used to end up showing up for meetings more than 30 minutes ahead, because if you live in a big city, you have to plan for that. Now, we are a growing town, and so some people who have lived here for their whole lives will tell you that there's more traffic here than there has ever been, but it is absolutely a breath of fresh air when you cross the Narrows Bridge and you come here into town and onto the Olympic Peninsula, because what most people consider traffic is a thing of the past and it's in your rearview mirror. So there's this rumor that I guess we have to address, that everybody thinks it rains here all the time, and therefore the weather's terrible, and why would you want to live here? Well, I use the term rumor, even though maybe sometimes we tell you it rains more because some people don't want people to move here. But the reality is, I have lived in a number of places in the United States. I've traveled everywhere else, and for year-round weather, Washington and Gig Harbor has some of the best. Again, what the heck am I talking about? Well, summers here they're second to none. We have warm, dry summers. We'll go 4 or 5 months without any rain, and the temperatures very, very rarely get into the 90s. So our average summer temperature is somewhere in the low 80s. Then in the winter, we have just enough seasons without being completely frigid cold like where I grew up in the Midwest. We'll get down past freezing a few times each winter. Will it snow here? Maybe once or twice, but when it snows, it's absolutely beautiful. The town just kind of shuts down and everybody enjoys it for a day, and then the temperatures will be back up into the 40s, and so all the snow will be gone, and then we have life back to normal. But I think it's important when we're talking about the climate and the overall environment here in Washington that we have to address climate change. And there are many areas of the country that are not as well suited to the things that are happening in the overall climate as we are here. A lot of people who move here from California, from parts of the desert, they're very, very concerned about drinking water and where and how much water, how much water do we have? And we have abundant water here. To the best of my knowledge, it is never going to run out. And we also, because we do have a good amount of rain in the wetter part of the year, we do not have the same kind of risk of wildfire as some of the more arid climates. So we just put all of those factors together. We've got a moderate climate. You can be outside enjoying it all times of the year. It's not too cold, it's not too hot. It actually rains less than we tell people it does. But because it rains when it does, it's also why it's so beautiful. Thanks for following along today. I hope I've shared some little tidbits, maybe some things you knew, or maybe you learned something new about Gig Harbor. If you have any questions or you're thinking about moving here, I hope you'll consider giving me a call. I also hope that you'll hit subscribe and watch some of my other great videos about life in Gig Harbor.